Coming up in just a moment, a programme from our Scottish community, the Irish, will be along at 1:30. Here's our weather. Areas of fog this evening, a sunny afternoon, light winds, a maximum of 15. It's 10.2 in Byron Place. Wednesday, mostly sunny with patchy fog in the early morning, 7 and 16. Thursday, sunny, 8 and 18. Friday, sunny, 9 and 19. Saturday, partly cloudy, medium chance of showers, most likely later in the day, a minimum of 10 and a maximum of 16. Sunday, partly cloudy, high chance of showers, 10 and 15. And Monday, July the 20th, partly cloudy, medium chance of showers, winds southwesterly, 15 to 25 kilometres an hour, a minimum of 9 and a maximum of 15 degrees. You're listening to 5 EBI FM, 103.1 EBI World in Digital, from our studios at 10 Byron Place in the heart of the city. The time is now 12:30.
Gama agus fáilte Comunn Rèidio Albannach Astràilia-a-Deas coig EBI yn 93.1 FM digitach EBI World srúig an line is measured in Itchnich Gary. Good afternoon and welcome to Scottish Radio Hour here at 5 EBI 103.1 FM or digital EBI World. My name is Rachel Hay and a special welcome to anyone listening from further afield with our streaming service at www.5ebi.com.au. How are you today? As always, I'm going to start with this week in animal news. Would you like the chance to name 3 baby ospreys? A fel y son anima na chwr 3 eisigan ilar a eisger? Na 3 eisigan clw tron camera nead ach awn yn lochaber, agus had jacan na milchan gelwch lant yn a nish, a coiator tron camera. Agus ha urus caia na halapa a toggle vot an line. The 3 osprey chicks at Loch Arkig Pine Forest in Lochaber found fame via Nest camera. Tens of thousands of fans worldwide watched the 3 of them, 2 males and a female, by camera, and now the Woodland Trust Scotland is holding an online vote. There are 4 sets of names you can choose from. Dame Vera Lynn, Captain Tom Moore and Doddy Weir, Ali, Bally and Bee, Thor, Freya and Loki, or Hagrid, Boudica and Merlin. Sinna ceir setach an Gianaman, a bhíos Aid and Paul an Ethelene, a chai a rúnig bhí an gurich, I was going to give you the link to the poll so you could join the poll yourself, but it has closed now, so all we have to do is wait for the results, see what these baby ospreys are named. But if you're having trouble deciding whether you'd prefer Scotland or Australia, then the perfect property for you is now on the market. Mae fees to hen metal Alpa agus Australia, ha nelen asjar gechain a nishri reik. Ha inish chonachan a mean loch lerman, agus ha skipper pocken ich lemi own. Inch Connachan, an uninhabited island in Loch Lomond, is for sale, complete with its colony of wallabies. It's 103 acres and is accessible by boat from the village of Luce. It has a derelict bungalow, but it's part of the Loch Lomond National Park. Ha cead acres sa trí awn an Ellen, agus siawntai, agus ha Parishdian Park National Loch Lomond. Sy'n rhaid rol don Ellen a bal Luce. Ach, nach dosh mi gavel pocken ich leer me awn. You may remember me saying, just a moment ago, that the island has wallabies. They were introduced to the island by Fiona Bride Gore, the Lady Aaron Calhoun, at the end of World War II, and have thrived on the island, eating oak, holly and birch. Chain the pochenich and tush der an Ellen, le funeral chonachin, e creich and dana cogi. Agus haiet a meadige gmor, leis geweliet a giche, darich, cudin, agus behe. Han Ellen reich dorinje gevel barich ke $2 million. The island is for sale for offers of £500,000. But, speaking of wallabies, here is Marsupial Joe, sung by Ted Egan on his CD Such Is Life.
It was way out west in a country town, an old prospector Joe rattled up the road in his battered old truck from his outback mine and show. He breasted the bar and he ordered a beer and he counted out his dough. But the publican said, "You're 3 cents short and I reckon you'll have to go." Yes, the publican said, "You're 3 cents short and I reckon you'll have to go." Joe pulled the tobacco tin out of his kick as he walked towards the door. And he looked at the publican in disgust and said, "Mate, you think I'm poor? But inside this tin are samples, mate, and I am fairly sure I'll have no financial worries, mate, from now to evermore. I'll have no financial worries, mate, from now to evermore." With the incredible speed of insatiable greed, the publican was heard to say, "Joe, old pal, old cobber, old friend, I'd love to have you stay. We'll have a few free drinks and meals and we'll send your samples for our say. And we'll form a mining company this very bloomin' day." Yes, we'll form a mining company this very bloomin' day. Oh, the rumours spread like wildfire and the locals filled the bar. They shouted Joe exotic drinks and he puffed on a big cigar. The Sheilas all proposed to him, folks came from near and far. And they formed a mining company and they called it Western Star. Yes, they formed a mining company and they called it Western Star. Joe wouldn't let the locals see the contents of his tin, but as he wrapped it carefully, he wore a crafty grin. He went down to the post office and he dropped his parcel in. And the publican stuck as close to Joe as a plaster on his shin. Oh, the publican stuck as close to Joe as a plaster on his shin. Hi, whined Joe, and they dined Joe, and they drove him all around. New tyres in the clutch for his old red truck to make it safe and sound. For 2 full weeks old Joe was king and he never bought a round. But when the message came from the School of Mines, he was nowhere to be found. When the message came from the School of Mines, he was nowhere to be found. They searched for Joe both high and low, but he'd flown off like a bird. So the publican grabbed Joe's telegram and demanded to be heard. He ripped it open, swallowed, gasped, and then he spluttered out these words. Your samples are identified as top-grade kangaroo turds. Your samples are identified as top-grade kangaroo turds. Ho!
I am a driver on a Western The sky is fading to the color of the valley, dust of rainbows and dust of dreams. Your city lights will shine until tomorrow, and I will not be here. But your light is brighter than anything I've ever seen. I hear your voice on every station, singing out of my dreams. By the roadside, the trees are shimmering, black and silver in the cool night air. And under a moon, I hear the song you're singing, saying I will meet you there. And your light is brighter than anything I've ever seen. I hear your voice on every station, singing out of my dreams. Here I am on the road again. This song began, and then in the end, I was standing by the sea.
That was Mary and Rita Rankin singing Western Highway on their album Lantern Burn. And speaking of highways, a bag of COVID-19 test samples was found by a member of the public on the A9 near Tain. Chai bagalan sample son diech yn virus a chrwn y lodig ritef yn A9. Urig yn bagal e cwdjichen a fadol siachadir, fasged bala rwych, na bwchraia yn siachgen, agos chaiet yn torst y siach gan folish. The samples were handed in to the local police station before being transferred to a laboratory team at Raigmore Hospital in Inverness, which is where they were being transported to from Caithness General Hospital in Wick, according to NHS Highland. Yeriv NHS na Gaeltach gyda na samplen gan torsta hospital galaf awn yn yr oige go hospital yn raheg fod awn yn Nish. Ha rawn sich ag anish gyyen of leis a ford slansje, agus hwrstet gyda a whole sample slan nu'r yr anegit yn ciawn uie. Agus nach roiet ag alm sy'n bi na'n cwnnast gan fod sloi. The Health Board has since launched an investigation into the circumstances that led to the coronavirus samples being found by the side of the road. But an NHS Highland spokesman said, "We're investigating now how this could have happened to ensure that it will not happen again, and we would like to reassure everyone that at no point was there a danger to the public from these samples. They were packed properly and remained intact. We are very grateful to the individual who handed the box of samples to the police. Hug at tank ran niach a uer yn baga agus hug ran y polishe. Hachlusion of virus yn lwydig awn yn alpa yn ish. Chaniel barach ger jach cwys yn uer fi awn gachwa fy chiawn tri siachgen. Tyf y mwy jehyrnio siachai agus chaniel dyrnio yn cyrchlog leis y virus fy chiawn siachgen. The number of new coronavirus cases in Scotland has fallen recently. This is good news. With the number of daily new cases below 10 every day in the last 3 weeks, except for Friday, and no deaths for nearly a week. Ha ameg bu a fosglogan shut. Ha massager and tolich can be cared achgas and refosglogan ish. Hurst mashader down and up again. Va mi cha tolich ha sho ertien fatun yvor. Chur yn naiach fech ag môr arym, I was so unbelievably happy, said a beautician in Aberdeen when she heard Nicola Sturgeon's announcement on Thursday that beauticians' nail salons would be open again from the 22nd. It's been a really, really long time coming, she said. Hearing the words that we could open was just the most amazing relief. We're obviously all still had bills to pay. Fy mal a stachgar I ffaig, a chalwch sialfa tai hwntas ag ysgolch yn dawnsa as the fehef, ag ys chanialit yn dwl gymbiet a fosgol gan mis sio. Indoor gyms and dance schools are still waiting to hear the word on when they can open, and aren't likely to be able to this month. Mark Boydell, a gym owner in Aberdeenshire, argued that gyms would help with people's physical and mental health. Hurst niach sialfa an siaramach gopa yen, gymbiet tehan súnta sa cumul suas sláinte daine. Ha mi cínteach gumbuchöf leis an luch bal ac in cyrra a hing ar ash, na beag it an biach gymbieg sin cynnerstach tha ni et falov. I'm sure our members would love the opportunity to come back and work out, he said. If they thought it was dangerous, they would stay away. And a teacher from the Aberdeen Academy of Performing Arts said that she was disappointed for her students that they don't have any clarity on when classes could go back. Her banna chegish downsa gavelia gavel mealach du, nach Elliot's and Keen shach couldn't be classic in a dash. Can you classic an an line a lehech hursty? Han an yach policy a yichainychik. A surring good lesson nyach as nyach a yenov. Ha studio voraching, I guess big mask at him. Ha mahrain vech gown. The online classes are not the same, the dance teacher said. We just seem to have been forgotten about. We could open for one-to-one lessons. We've got a large studio. I could have a mask on, there's a low risk. We want to get these children back to being themselves. Give us a date to work towards. This certainty is damaging. First Minister Sturgeon has urged people in Scotland to follow a new law making it compulsory for both workers and shoppers in Scotland to wear a face mask in shops from now on. Féimi an dáchuid luch ábrach as luch ceannach gan alapa cádach édan a chur ara an an búchin na dúche van dú amach, van dé amach a stocha, and bí a hola dunne rís na réaltin seo a lenten ach a van clown ága, Dynja eikvel trippeltjen anolgavel, nu fjouwen eikvel trippeltjen fisagach. A rage gumbeg a duddev rave mask a chumalode. Everyone will have to follow this new mask wearing rule, except for certain groups who would have difficulty with it, such as children under the age of 5, and people with respiratory difficulties who would struggle to breathe without the mask, and certain other medical conditions and disabilities. The Scottish Government has said that it hopes using face coverings will provide an additional layer of protection to lower the risk of coronavirus being transmitted, but insists that face coverings are not a substitute for other measures to prevent the spread, such as physical distancing and hand washing. Get the hand real chur a kedachag the chuch gun shinna yenav. Chur and priv venistje een pier a fopel na real chanella. Réaltje astrach ag socialte a lenten, gus cach a chéile a dhéon van a virus. A bí ag a hola dunneir in a réaltje a lenten, agus chaví an ura ré luch ábrach na búchin, ritorste luch ceannach mascich an a chur ure. Bí ag a hola dunne na réaltje a lenten agus hush machine. Police Scotland said it was asking people to take responsibility to do the right thing themselves, and said that it wouldn't be the responsibility of shop workers to enforce mask wearing by the shoppers, as they wouldn't know who was exempt from wearing a face covering. They said, though, that although they would help, this is the police, they would enforce the law as a last resort, only where there was a clear breach of the legislation. Again, there are exemptions. Hosh na Polish gata guntorietsen tech shachkat snach be ach garish and le a chur and sas ach van me vis dunja go fallashach a dalan in an ilchin, the realchin. Mar sin, Jay ha na characterins na cluts na round of Claudia a gra and Colodic Shaw. What are our nursery rhyme characters up to this fortnight? And how are they handling the changing social distancing regulations? Scríb Mary, Gunda Rascally, and Ianat Gary Gamirakal. Mary wrote in to say that she has reopened her gardening centre after all. She was approved to operate with a modified number of staff members. Her 2 pretty maids hardly constitute a row, and 1 is operating the cash register. Chai yn plan eich a chedach leis a chola, ach chaniel a hwlan a chobrach ar ash. Chafi ach da a yn fwyach gael ech yn awm. Agus ha che a goprach ag yn cofan aragat. Sgrif Sheila, well, chais yn suas a fain richele, gus pelosh ga aing, ach gumi orstanach, hutch iain agus vrish a chawn eid. Hutch mi heen cudjach, a charoach pat yn yrym. Ha iain ast sy'n hospital agus ha sin an dochas nach jefe virus a chrwn yn sin, ha cura cwysyn fi iawn sy'n hospital sin. Jill wrote in to say, "We did go up the hill to get our pail of water, but unfortunately Jack fell down and broke his head. I also fell, but I only had bruises. Jack is still in hospital. We're hoping he doesn't catch coronavirus there, as there have been some reported cases in that hospital." Oer Teddy Jech in it on the virus scarce gunda rave cyrym far gawn sa chalia cola rí se charjan. Ach, sawn awn sa Victoria a reine sin. Agus ha cwysyn mead a gymwyr and shit bychion gyrich. Teddy has had to have a coronavirus test because he did end up having that picnic in the woods with all his friends when the lockdown eased. But he made the mistake of living in Victoria, where coronavirus cases have risen dramatically recently. He's now back in lockdown and awaiting the results of his test. Ha Teddy rashan on lockdown agus hef tureg and diech yn eke. Chadwr siores porus diech yn y virus, chwn yn rotorig jerefach, ag trwy yn y caligan gandog e pog. Georgie Porgy didn't get tested for coronavirus until after 3 of the girls he had kissed had already tested positive. Between his behaviour and the girls' own frivolous attitude to playing outside, he has now been deemed one of the most active super-spreaders of nursery rhyme land. Etter an da chwch yn rech ag siores porus agus na caligan a chluchte fy mwy cho trich, a siores hen a di siar yn ochig ma super-spreaders yn sgir a hecca. Hwrst siawn faher habad gyn jachi yn fwy, agus gyn da chiawnach I ar yn da chwechca. Agus eisiau gyma toligtio gyn dranagi na bwychtien, mus da rahosig yn panig chiawnach a gyrisht. Old Mother Hubbard is pleased to report that not only did she go to the shops to get her dog a bone, but she did that before the panic buying started again. So, from nursery rhymes to rocking chairs, here is Clear with the DT's set, a Strathspey called Welcome to the DT's, followed by 2 tunes called Rinky Tink Tink and Farquhar's Rocking Chair. This is Runrig singing Fichad Bliana, or 20 years, Bishan Runrig a Shane Fichad Bliana. A Chaviakams a range to look na Gaelic, Jehach a Chudramach, Mayen Jech Bliana, San Nayach gan Jach gan Sachay. Ha Verus Gruna Ludachig, a Gaelic a Ludachig Kudjach, a res Grudig Hanig van Hu Gurich. Ha Krenach na Gaelic, Giresh. Ounds na meanan, lesh gan jach nor the Gaelic crisis in the vernacular community, oishachig. The Gaelic has been in the news for the last week, and not for a good reason. A study entitled The Gaelic Crisis in the Vernacular Community claimed the Gaelic will be dead as a community language in 10 years. Despite what the headlines are saying, this does not mean that Gaelic itself will die in 10 years. Mae'r safes, mae'r fiag dólach at anna headlines a crwchag awn yn dwy fer yn biag tŵsmang na chael dochas awn son chanan. Ach sy'n rwt a bwchwrgain cynniachag gynjach yn raunsach ag of coersniachgan Gaelic. Agus yn coersniach yn larger fer yn big Gaelic chlachag valag la. The study was not about whether every Gaelic speaker in the world will die within the next 10 years. I certainly hope I won't. I would think I'm too young for that. But the study was looking at communities where Gaelic is spoken daily. And the reasons people in those communities, especially younger people, might choose not to speak Gaelic outside the house. Ha cwtsawn y frenas gyffeliant awn sa Gaelic a chator barach gawn na chael chomesniach al awn sa sgilion canan ecca. Ys doch gan big ecca lyra yn rwyd ciar yr ar. Nio ysdoch y gyfelit clachtir I fi brian awns o fiola yn tosich nach smaintio net Gaelig y clachig awns o chiad dolamach. Nio gyfel dynia na sinia a frian rwa sa fiola a fan. Many people are fluent in Gaelic, but for one reason or another aren't confident in their language skills. They might be afraid to say something wrong, or they might be so used to speaking English that they don't automatically speak Gaelic first. Or it might be that older people refuse to speak Gaelic with them because they've been conditioned to think that there's no point speaking Gaelic to younger people or passing it on. It's very easy to believe that you shouldn't speak Gaelic. I've got emails telling me I shouldn't speak it on the radio. I've been told by other people in the radio committee that I shouldn't speak it, that no one understands it, and so on. Gaelic speakers, especially those still living in Scotland, live in a world where mainstream media repeats the narrative that Gaelic is a drain on finances, it's a dying language and a dying population, it's not a real language, it's not a Scottish language and it shouldn't be spoken. A sinir na gael iolach gyliwyd droch naiach mynd chanan, agus biachgan na chael fe media awn sa Gaelic. Ha cwyd agamich sna lion shaw, snach jyn droch naiach gela ach crown syim na'n gael. Ach, ha fiawn ela na mean yn socialta, Femi fisa fi dunya, cacha fel it to shasov, feich gynurin gai vaharach ag yenov, yn tuyach ag achga. Some have said in recent days that more bad news only hurts the Gaels, piles on more feelings of futility, and others have argued that on social media that one first has to know where you stand before you can change the situation. So, I've been looking at all the opinions that have been going around to see what might actually be applicable to us in Australia. I've already mentioned one place where attitudes to Gaelic here perfectly mimic those in Scotland. Mar sin, Jane Urin Rein Aherachig a Shaw, Anne in Australia, Gus a Gaelic a Hummel Bio. We can't change the fact that the world places more value on English. It's the most common language in the world. But we can change the fact that it's taken the place of Gaelic in the community. And I say we, knowing full well that as an Australian, I don't really get much say in this, even though Gaelic was, for a time, the primary language of some communities in Australia. Chan je cyrraghenia hawn gyfel barach loach a chwrs o fiele. Se sin canan na rhaenobrach, se sin canan aspianta sy'n tyl. Ach carsona ha príomhacha gaien na'r behers na coirsnach gan, agus y ffys acam sa gacínseach nel smith acam hyn ri ra sin. Leis gyfel mi am Australianach a ffwrach gawn yn Australia. Fiws gyda Gaelig na príomh chanan iem y coirsnach ga sio y cilnata. Ha barach gawn yn canan siach faclan y fan. Agus je siwr sa lion a nia coirsnach diönia nŵr ha yn canan tŵsanach ac a creanag. Se sin ceirte fys dynian yn Alpa a fainiach ganis, ach by fys acen jawn in Australia jam freckirst. A language is more than just words, and Gaels in Scotland have been asking themselves what sort of damage it can do to a people to lose their first language. Gaels in Australia should know that, because we have lost it in most cases. But the word used in posing that question in Gaelic is Tusanach, our indigenous language. It's not a hypothetical question here in Australia, and Gaels aren't the only ones in Australia who have suffered the loss of their language. English is given a priority over other languages which have been and its priority has been perpetuated through, and I'm quoting many articles that have come out this week, it's been perpetuated through cultural oppression and a system which attacks people and cultures that are not British enough, not white enough, it's a system that emphasises the economic value of a language over its human connection. Ceannas eicivel a bhuanach ag troimpi chultúrach agus an testam calpi a nach gamach a dhéonsaí a gábhal duine agus cultúran nach rá bretanach go leor, nó Eorpach go leor, nó geall go leor. Ach, nuair a how a cur luach economi canan, how a tort fallah fa ceanglach an duine a heice. A ríist, chanan go bhfuil barach gaan an canan seach faclan. Agus ha canan a tortagid dói an eile samaniachig, agus dói an eile coiad an dúil. Agus buchóir sin hain a bhí na över a bhí John a chartachig. I'll say it again. There's more to a language than just words, because each language gives you a different way of thinking and of looking at the world. That in itself should be more than enough reason to value and promote any language and to keep it in your families, even if you live in Australia in a community where it's never going to be the main language of the community. So chead dolmach, Jay bechorgain again of what should we do? Hashin fada ra mogel. Bishan dolach childe chunaviela, nur a ha kutchig nar mes gek nach helach, ach aviela. Hashin a kielachig, gevele nasas a hummel rishavela. Fus nur a how a brian rigailella. As a start, we should stop being so polite. Bear with me. We swap far too easily to English when there's someone around who speaks only English, and that means it's far too easy to speak only English, even when we're talking to other Gaelic speakers. So we should just keep speaking Gaelic, or whatever your first language happens to be, if you're talking to someone else who speaks your language. And if someone overhears who is not part of the conversation, who doesn't like that, then it's none of their business. English-only speakers shouldn't just assume that they have the right to understand everything they hear. By all means speak English to them, but speak to other Gaels in Gaelic. Bechorain cummel a dulth Gaelic agus manach chorstsin ri lucht na bele, chavishin go jeffaloer. Chanel kjarstech lucht na bele, gach cora gavis it de kleintje a hikshin. Gekeenshach, bechorain bele a brian cola due, ach bechorain Gaelic a brian rigaelella. Ach, well, chanelshin ri of foreste, son sloer a ha as de volling for sklovo churi, harginjelach, a ha torst boy, chod Dutch, sa hashin geschassef, a suas ri bielchas, agus ri duine, a vies a geen sherein, no be a brein na canon amajech ut. Despite this, it's never easy for people that are still suffering the effects of intergenerational massacres, and that's not an exaggeration, that's the clearances, and everything that's happened that, and hearing in the news that Gaelic is useless, to stand up against English-ification and against the people who so often tell us, don't speak that stupid language. Member of Scottish Parliament Kate Forbes said after the news of the study broke last week that people have to speak Gaelic in every situation that they can in order to protect the language, and that is the responsibility of Gaels to make sure that organisations provide services for them in Gaelic. This is, of course, in Scotland. Vol an bhil Parliament Albannach Kate Arabish gumbeag duine a chlaching na Gaelic a ounds gach suúchig a sirin raibh gustín a chud a chanan, agus gavele an ure ri na Gael hain, Jane of Keenshach gumbe buunian a torst servishin raibh sa Gaelic. Horsi nach e seo dierich me yen a vi a cud Jean coulter, no a vi a coinich a gashincherin. Ach, gavel seo mun unie háiseach urin, gus a yen of Keenshach gavel an can an seo, bio, agus a chlach grey imag bliana rihéing. This isn't just about defending our culture or remembering our ancestors, she said, Kate Forbes from the Scottish Parliament, but our future and about making sure that the language lives on and is used for many years to come. Many public organisations in Scotland, and I hasten to add several in Australia, say that they support Gaelic. And that doesn't mean they offer services in Gaelic. It doesn't mean that if Gaelic speakers want to speak to someone in Gaelic or request a service in Gaelic that they get it. ha tor byn yn poblach an yn Alpa, agus corabwyn y Sioan yn Australia gra gyfel i at y cwr tachri sy'n Gaelig. A chaniel sy'n y cielwch gyfel serafes yn ach gawn y mewn y Gaelig. Agus ha sy'n y cielwch mae halwch lafas na Gaelig sy'n brin recwtig yn sy'n Gaelig. Nio ha ageri serafes sy'n Gaelig chaniel i at gaffaying. Y ffeimi byn yn poblach falsig gyfel na serafes yn sy'n a awn sy'n Gaelig. Agus mae hogras dynia sy'n bi serafes yn aing awn sy'n Gaelig. Ha yn tyr sy'n achga. Public organisations in Scotland, the Member of Parliament, Kate Forbes, said, need to do more than just say that they support the Gaelic language. They need to state that their services are available in Gaelic, and that if anyone who wants to receive these services in Gaelic, they have that choice. And this goes equally for us in Australia. And I say this as someone involved heavily with both of the Gaelic societies here. Chanel y riaf gyda'r gynsa Sioan yn Australia, mae sé Comunn Gaelic a hynnyng, bwchor gyda yryn dogenia a fi a brian rhain ans Gaelic. Bwchor do ny'n cynyfan aging a fi ans Gaelic. Chanel y gylior yda, y synia Comunn Rèidio Albannach Astràilia-a-Deas, agus yn aniam aching ans Gaelic. Mae fes presenter yn y garen mewn cwrt y Gaelig aching. Nio gyfel presenter ela, sy'n mesio y brian Gaelig yn eir. If we're a Gaelic society, people should be able to communicate with us in Gaelic. We should hold our meetings in Gaelic. It's not enough to say, we're the Scottish Radio Association of South Australia, for example, and subtitle it in Gaelic, Comunn Rèidio Albannach, if behind the scenes people are complaining about having a Gaelic language quota or having a presenter who presents in Gaelic. And I'm trying very hard not to whinge here. But we can't, on the one hand, acknowledge that we only have a Scottish radio programme because of the Gaelic. On the other hand, not just ignore the language's existence, but deride it and get angry when someone speaks it. This is why I'm looking at this information that is coming out from Scotland and thinking, well, let's not just feel bad about it, let's work out what we can do. The Scottish diaspora community, in fact the Scottish community in Scotland, but here in Australia, is stronger, not weaker, for having three languages, Gaelic, English and Scots. Gaelic has always been part of the Scottish community in Australia, and it is up to everyone, Gaelic speakers and non-speakers alike, to make sure that Gaelic will always be part of the Scottish community in Australia. Chabuch rein yn dan laf a fi ag aniachig nach el program Albannach aching ach gas na Gaelige. Agus yn lai vela a jane of achig nach el Gaelig gawn agus nach buchohi a fi gabrian. Han corisnach Albannach an in Australia nas lagere is gas gyfel 3 canin aching a Gaelig a viel agus an Albanish. Ha Gaelig fi parstin corisnach Albannach an in Australia fy hws, ach is corich gan a hwla dynia, gael agus dynia ec nach hel Gaelig, a yen of Keenchach gan be a Gaelig rief parstin corisnach Albannach an in Australia. That's me getting off my soapbox. Ach, sure slúig Giovanna Gael a Shane Canon and Gael. Here's a whole slew of people singing Canon and Gael, the language of the Gaels, on the CD Gaelic Women.
Chapeng hranef gi On is brought to you by our sponsors, the Scottish Banner newspaper. The Scottish Banner is Australia's national Scottish newspaper, available each month with news from Scotland and the Australian Scottish community. Get your copy at newsagents or by subscribing at www.scottishbanner.com. For a good Scottish read, get the Banner.
Ha se bhgéisteach rí ó réideach Albannach Astràilia-a-Deas ag coig EBI 93.1 FM digitach EBI World News Thruig an line. You are listening to Scottish Radio Hour on 5EBI 103.1 FM, digital EBI World, or now streaming online. Han program seo is on naiach va Alpa agus on pobl Albannach a seo an Astràilia-a-Deas agus a holoduich. This program is for those interested in all things relating to Scotland and the Scottish diaspora here in Australia. Nan beag tollef bal radio a vies chanile ach $8 ach bliana agus beag sif ga cudjacha gajerif carafon go mairet ag nionike in 3 shach da da coig 3 shach. If you'd like to help us stay on air, you can become a member for only $10 a year. To find out more or to get an application form, please ring Margot on 0413 722 537. Ha avod der an ethelin am bliana. The Royal National Mod is online this year. Chanel na real chanawn a vies awn gehavastjach a syrin rydg oren a rálnach ag latein agus chaviach a drish na dochtig an a lent in joskrivig agus a churistjach. There aren't nearly so many rules as there normally are. You get to choose your own pieces and you don't have to follow the written dots or write them down and submit them. Maar vis jachke der avod koje triklaren obrach avod ek and common.co.uk/Irlania gus jervigaying in rol na abuchorach. If you're interested in taking part in the virtual mod, and I cannot say enough how great an opportunity it is for us, those of us in Australia who can't always get over to Scotland to compete in these things, you should go to www.uncommon, that's ANCOMUNN.co.uk/air, that's AIR -Lania, LOIDHNE, to determine which category to enter. Then, record your performance on a mobile phone or camera and submit it at the same link by Friday the 31st of July. As je do gníomh a chláirigh e fan live your camera, luchtach suas e tron system gannéan ceangal ríide héine and turn of la je gerichet and yuchit. Again, more details can be found at www.uncommon.co.uk/Irlania. And if you want to improve your Gaelic, speak your Gaelic, or simply start learning Gaelic after listening to this bilingual program or hearing my impassioned speech earlier in said program, Comunn Gaelic Australia is our offering online classes. A 15-week semester is beginning on the 28th of July. There are classes for beginner and intermediate learners and a song class for learning Gaelic songs, all on Zoom, which is video conferencing technology, on weekday evenings in Australian time. The 2 language classes are especially suited to those who have used Duolingo, but anyone in Australia and New Zealand is welcome to sign up. Look on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Australian Gaelic, or email ausgaelic, that's AUS Gaelic, @gmail.com for more information. Agus ha sin cheering go críche program, agus ha acam Anish Rida Shinevu Manish van Rèidio Albannach Astràilia-a-Deas coig EBI 93.1 FM. That's all we have time for today on Scottish Radio Hour at 5EBI 103.1 FM. So it's goodbye from me, Rachel Hay, Shira Drasta agus Sorry Lev, Chi Shinjev and Ahiachking, a Chafalavi, Statierson U Radio Eranach Ekle Ur. Scottish Radio Hour will be back at the same time next week, and of course don't forget Celtic Radio Hour at 5 p.m. on Saturday. And in fact, why go anywhere now? Stick around and listen to our friends at Irish Radio Hour coming up shortly at 1:30 live in the studio. Until then, here's Runrig.